Broadway Avenue for NBC newsman and Yankton native Tom Brokaw.
But the approval hasn't come without controversy. Tracy O'Halloran tonight has our top story.
The controversy surrounding the honorary name Tom Brokaw Boulevard has nothing to do with liking or disliking Tom Brokaw or the $120 it will cost to post signs here on 2nd and Broadway and 31st and Broadway. It's a question of principle.
And people were upset, basically. A lot of them were because of the way it was done. And a lot of people wanted to have the public input.
Dave Hosmer is a commissioner who has been under scrutiny ever since the story hit the papers. He says the paper just didn't get the story right, and that's why people are angry.
When they said that it was a name change, it was completely false. It was an honorarium. And when they said that it had already occurred and they put it in the past tense, and the language in the article, it was false too.
But Jensen says Hosmer contacted Brokaw before he discussed it with the commission. And since Brokaw gave his permission, it seemed to be a done deal.
So when you do that, you're basically committing the city, I feel, as a commissioner, because you're a representative of the city.
Hosmer says if anyone wants to blame him for the controversy surrounding Tom Brokaw Boulevard, they can go right ahead.
I told the commission tongue-in-cheek last night, anybody who moves out of Yankton or their business because of this, I'll personally be held responsible for it.
In Yankton, Tracy O'Halloran, News 5.
Now, the new signs will be in place by August when Brokaw is expected to revisit his hometown of Yankton. Meantime, Commissioner Jensen is planning to start a petition drive to take the issue to a public vote.
The South Dakota native is among 8 people killed on Mount Everest after a blizzard over the weekend. 46-year-old Doug Hansen attended Aberdeen Roncalli High School and then moved to Washington when he was 17. Hansen was a postal clerk for almost 25 years. His aunt, who still lives in Aberdeen, says his body will not be returned but will be buried on the mountain as others have been. This was Hansen's second trip to Mount Everest. Last year, he and the others in his group had to turn back after getting within 300 feet from the top.
A rollover accident near Andover in northeastern South Dakota has left 1 person dead. The South Dakota Highway Patrol says 35-year-old Patsy Sue Slade of Steen, Minnesota was killed when her vehicle rolled several times on Highway 12 just west of Andover. Troopers say Slade apparently drove onto the shoulder of the road and overcorrected the move, causing the vehicle to roll. Slade was alone in the car.
Witnesses in the first-degree murder trial of 44-year-old Marlo Hoffman testified today that Hoffman told them he killed his brother. Hoffman's cousin told jurors that Marlo Hoffman told him he had killed his brother. Hoffman is accused in the stabbing death of 53-year-old Ronald Hoffman, who was found dead last June in his bar in Brant. Hoffman's trial began yesterday in Clear Lake.
The city of Millbank is looking for a new police chief. The city council there voted this week not to renew the annual appointment of Bob Eide. Newly elected city council member Marcy Smith had criticized Eide when she was running for office, accusing him of hindering her attempts to get city crime statistics. She also said Eide had manipulated the figures to make his department look good. Eide has held the police chief job for about 4 years. Well, as News 512 at 10 continues tonight, a change has been approved in the reciprocity agreement between the State Board of Regents and the state of Minnesota.
The revision affects Minnesota students who are enrolled in South Dakota professional programs such as law school or medical school. The revision approved today by the Regents says that tuition cannot exceed 150% of resident rates at the school a student is attending. Without the limit, those students would have made tuition rates exceeding those charged to regular non-resident students.
Aberdeen Mayor Timothy Rich is in Washington today testifying on the importance of funding by the Federal Aviation Administration to airports like Aberdeen's for improvements. U.S. Senator Larry Pressler questioned Mayor Rich on the funding today before the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, citing that small non-hub airports like Aberdeen's have suffered a dual blow in recent years when it comes to money from the federal government. Pressler today referred to testimony previously given to the committee by Dave Jagrum, who is the South Dakota Department of Transportation.
And he said he believed that the unpredictability of AIP funds are really harming air service in South Dakota and many other small areas and probably nationwide. With respect to Aberdeen and neighboring communities, do you agree?
I definitely agree that the uncertainty of funding is a major problem for communities the size of Aberdeen, given resources that are stretched to the limit to rebuild roads, build schools, and other things. airports generally are not on the highest priority list.
Aberdeen officials are asking for $6.8 million in airport improvement funds to help raise the level of their main runway, which will relieve a problem during the freeze-thaw seasonal changes.
In World Watch tonight, federal investigators are putting a high priority on finding the cockpit voice recorder from ValueJet Flight 592. They're slowly piecing together the last minutes leading up to the crash. Meantime, family and friends of the victims will be able to visit the Florida Everglades crash site tomorrow for a religious memorial service.
Well, it was only an aerosol can, but it caused quite a fuss at the Newark airport when it exploded inside a bag on a conveyor belt. Officials were forced to operate under bomb scare conditions for a few hours this afternoon after the bag carrying the can blew open. The bag was to be loaded onto an Air France flight headed for Paris.
And a 15-year-old Salt Lake City boy is dead after a bus hijacking. He apparently shot a school bus driver in the leg, then helped her and the other children off the bus. A high-speed chase with police followed, which ended when the teen shot himself and crashed the bus into a brick house.
We thought we had a lot of wind here this morning, but it sounds like there's a lot of strong storms moving through the western part of South Dakota tonight.
Just what we didn't want to hear. Scott, can you give us any better news? He's standing by in the News 5 Weather Center.
Well, not really. We did see some strong thunderstorms push on through the western sections of South Dakota. Now it's in Nebraska at this hour. Let's take a look at the almanac and show you what's going on in the eastern sections of South Dakota. Well, we started off with a temperature of 49 degrees, only warmed up to 57 in Sioux Falls, warmed up in the 70s in Pierre. We'll tell you why in a little bit. Normals are 70 and 45. Records are 96 and 29. We saw 0.2 of an inch of precipitation since midnight. We're still well below normal. 6:02 is the sunrise, sunset at 8:44. Let's take a look at the regional satellite map. We'll show you exactly why it warmed up in Pierre and not around here. Look at all the clouds right in the eastern sections of South Dakota, and still at this hour, that's the case, and temperatures really aren't cooling down because of that as well. But in Pierre, we saw some partial clearing this afternoon, warming their temperatures up to about 70, same with Mobridge and even into Aberdeen. But around the southeastern sections, really not a lot of warming up because those clouds stuck around. Only 57 it got for a high. Look at these other highs, though, in the 80 in Pierre, rather. 77 in Mobridge, 72 in Aberdeen.
All thanks to the Fraternal Order of Police Auxiliary. Members tied the ribbons on law enforcement vehicles today to raise awareness and show their support. You can show your support, too. Tomorrow is Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and the FOP is asking all of us to drive with our headlights on throughout the day. Well, coming up on News 5 at 10 is the philosophy of no dealing deals, and it's becoming a national trend in buying cars. But is it really a good deal? We'll find out in tonight's 5 on Your Side Consumer Report.
Bridging the generation gap, 2 groups in Sioux Falls learn from past and present life experiences.
And there's a sweet sound coming from the halls of Sioux Falls City Hall. We'll tell you why when News 5 at 10 continues.